Hello and welcome back to the Social Jar Podcast, episode 21. As always, I'm your host, Dan Wiseman, and I'm joined by Mr. Andreas Georgiou to take a 21st dive into the wild and wacky world of social media. Make sure you follow at Uniform Brand. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of the major platforms. So make sure you give us a follow to keep up to date with everything that we're doing here in-house. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing great, Dan. I'm a bit in a surreal mindset because
I wanted to hand over to you.
Days, everybody. I don't want to even speculate how long we've been talking about this, but finally, the uniform set has come to fruition. Here it is. A big shout out to the whole of the team that have played a part in this. You've got these amazing designs behind us. We've got some awesome props on the table. We're in a great studio setup. The acoustics are amazing in this room.
Yep.
So wow, finally, it does feel great, and it is just great to see that after all this time, the vision which we've had, and it wasn't me bullshitting, has finally come to life. It's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
Mate, 100%. This does feel like the Social Jar's final form. The scale of Pokemon evolution, it's reached.
We are there.
Yeah, 100%. It's taken on a lot of forms. We've been there's been 3 of us, there's been 2 of us. We've been virtual. We've done it all. But yes, mate, it feels very good to finally be here. And I think we've got a very fitting, very fun, very exciting episode to get the ball rolling. We're going to be lining up a few predictions each. We're going to be taking in turns to put some hot takes together. It's a bit of a hot or not episode where we're going to be rating each other's takes on some predictions for the future of social media. They can range from the steaming, the boiling, the too hot to touch, right down to the freezing cold and everywhere in between. I'm really excited. As I said, we're going to alternate between the 2 of us. We've got 3 takes each. We should preface that whilst we know the topics of each other's, we wanted to do a little bit, we don't actually know the reasoning and the research that each of us put. So correct. It's going to be you guys are going to be reacting to it at the same time of us. So make sure you let us know how you rate each of our takes.
And trust me, Dan, because I've looked at the titles of what you're going to talk about, and I'm already thinking like, where's the boy going with this? So I'm very excited to hear what you're going to have to say today.
Yeah, man. Yeah. To be honest with you, there's been some. I've had a few times like this actually on the Social Jar where I've come up with a topic and thought, yeah, that's pretty nailed on. I imagine that's going to happen. And I do some research, and it turns out all of the stats and data can back up the complete opposite. But I've steadfast. I've remained strong. These are hot takes after all. Some of the research backs me up. Some of it doesn't. But yeah, personal predictions, right?
Every day's a learning day, hey?
100%. So I'll get the ball rolling. And I'll probably start with my biggest take. And to long-time listeners of the Social Jar, I don't think this will come as much of a surprise because I've expressed a lot of doubts as to the metaverse, which leads me on to my first prediction, that the metaverse is destined to fail. And so before I hand over to you, mate, before you rate my hot take, I'll give you, don't worry, I'm not just going to throw that at you. I'll do the groundwork. So, there's a number of doubts. They're multifaceted, my doubts as to whether the metaverse is I think it will come into fruition, but I don't think it will work out as Meta or Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg plan it to. And so my first thing is that, like, if this came from Apple, or I know they're not much better in terms of like a customer or user satisfaction and data protection, but someone like Amazon or a big tech company, if they'd have been the one to drive this product forward, I think I would have a bit more faith in it. But can this company, who we've been slandering for like most of the 21 episodes of this podcast, seriously be the ones to lead the world into what is a very different and very complex Internet 3.0 scenario? That's my first doubt. The second one is that the physical realities of it, strip everything away, all the tech, all the finance, everything. So the metaverse, as I understand it, the physical reality of it is that you sit in a room, probably in your own house, with VR glasses sort of strapped onto your head, and you go into the metaverse and you can perform everyday tasks like going to meetings, you can meet with friends, you can go shopping, you can go to concerts, you can do all of this stuff. And you're supposed to sort of do this every day for maybe a few hours on end, go to work, like do your 9-5 in the metaverse, beaming your every move and expression into a virtual world used to mimic the real one. Like, I just can't. And we're supposed to buy into this on a mass scale. I don't know, mate. The physical realities of it, I can't see it.
Have you ever seen Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's final form of what Meta can be, where it's literally this oasis inside the virtual world. Listen, I do hear your doubts. I think for us as people that live in the real world, the whole idea that one day we're not going to live in the real world anymore. Well, we will still be in the real world, but the majority of what we do will take place in an alternate dimension or Internet 3.0, whatever you want to refer to it as. It's very alien, isn't it? It's very difficult to grasp. But it's going to happen. And I think I understand like there is a lot of confusion around, whether or not Meta are the right people to lead such a revolutionary moment in human existence. But ultimately, they're the ones that have the funds. They're the ones that have, they're putting the risk on the line that they're going to deliver this. Mark Zuckerberg's reputation, everything that Meta are doing is gearing towards Internet 3.0. It's gearing towards the metaverse. It's going to happen. Is it going to be an instant success? No. I mean, if you already think of it now, think about Oculus Rift and all these different VR headsets. It's still not commonplace. Most households don't own VR headsets. They're still a luxury. For metaverse to happen, it has to become the same way me and you have a computer and an iPad and a phone. Your VR headset is going to be a part of that in terms of a necessity for you to own. So there's going to be hurdles in the way, but sooner or later, Dan, I think it's gonna be a big thing. I think that the metaverse, what it represents and what it allows us to do, which is live in this fake real reality and live it with people that aren't with us. The actual concept is amazing to think about it. Your friend all the way across the world, even though you can't be together, you can be together in the metaverse. So I think there is something about it, which the same way people like video games, because you can play with your friends anywhere in the world. The same reason we use instant messaging services like WhatsApp. We can talk to our friends and family anywhere in the world. That's why the metaverse will ultimately succeed. So I think that's a stinker. I'm rating that as not hot. I'm sorry, mate. Dan, I'm not on board with that.
It's a funny one, mate, and it's interesting that I get it, and like, I feel like a bit of a lone ranger on this, because like when I was doing my research, I was looking into like why do other people think it might not work, and like one of the things I found it really made me laugh, and it was like, well, we have meetings on Zoom, and on that you can turn your camera off and you can sort of like eye roll to your colleagues and be like, oh, what's he on about? He's doing it again. It's like you're not going to be able to do that in the metaverse, because it's like the sort of the mock-ups that we've seen and everything like that. Like it translates your facial expression onto your avatar. So if you're there like eye rolling at the guy on the other end of the phone, it's going to be doing that in the meeting. And they were like, we can't have that. And I was like, that's a valid point. And it's interesting you mentioned video games, because like I've tried on it. I've not got one of my own, but I've tried on VR headsets to play video games and stuff like that. And like I just sort of felt like, you can become like racing drivers or like gangsters or movie stars or like footballers or wizards, like in video games, and you can be whatever you want. But after like half an hour, you're sort of like, yeah, I think I'll go back to the real world.
Probably
now.
take this off now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I felt. So I was like, if we can become all of these amazing things, and at the end of the day, we're sort of like, yeah, this is cool, but real life is better. I can't really grasp how a sort of slightly abstract version of real life is going to be better than real life.
Well, let me just, I'll hit you with this, and this is all to do with technological advancements. 20 years ago, mate, people were using Nokia bricks to call each other, text each other. There's no apps, there's no, whatever we use nowadays on our smartphones, no touchscreen, none of that. That is now commonplace. Back then when the iPod or the iPhone were first introduced, there were people who were immediately like, whoa, is this a step too far? Like, what is this? Like, too much power in our hands, almost. And you can argue the metaverse is exactly the same. Like we're saying, we've not grown up in the virtual world, Dan. We've grown up in the real world, where if you want to go and to have a meeting, you have to go, and have it physically. I mean, like Zoom and Teams and things like that. I mean, I know we had Skype when we were younger, but even that 100%. Stuff's still new. Even 100%. That stuff's still new technology. So to take that one step further, look, it's hard to grasp, and I think until we see a bit more. Look, the truth is, metaverse, what we've seen of it so far, it's all mock-ups, it's all hypotheticals.
Yes,
you know, there's no tangible, real evidence. I know that obviously the metaverse does already exist, and there are things happening in it. But in terms of what's accessible to the everyday person, obviously that's not here yet. So, yeah. I don't agree with your take, but I'll tell you what, I think there's some valid point in what you're saying.
You heard it out, and I think we'll hand it over to you, and we'll stick with Meta, because one of your predictions, mate, is that Meta are going to dive into the world of crypto.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm glad that these two link together really well. Look, if we think about what our boy Zucks has told us about the metaverse, is that he wants to provide this world where people can live, find entertainment, do their chores, do their shopping, live their real life, but in Internet 3.0. And to do that, Dan, just like if I want to go and get a Subway sandwich, I've got to go and pay with my credit card or my debit card or with cash. That's what's going to happen in the metaverse. Now, when you have an ecosystem, you immediately think, okay, what's the tender going to be here? Because I can't use physical cash. I might be able to use a card in the metaverse. That's a big possibility. But if I'm looking at this from a crypto perspective, the reason that crypto can succeed, a crypto token or a crypto coin, is it needs an ecosystem to succeed. So the only way the value of a crypto coin or a crypto token can increase is it has to be used. It's the same way as tender, like normal cash. Like the pound is set because, it's set against the dollar, and the dollar's set against this, and it's to do with, how much of that's in the economy, reserves, etc. So it's very, very complicated. But it's exactly the same with crypto. And that's why, Bitcoin now, in terms of the digital world, is becoming more and more commonplace as an acceptable form of payment. And if I'm Meta and I'm looking at this opportunity that we're going to create an ecosystem where that people have to use some kind of digital currency, I'm looking at this and going, why don't we create our very own Meta currency? Because they have the perfect opportunity. They've got the audience base. They're going to bring the biggest brands that exist into the metaverse. They are going to be able to provide people exactly what they want. And if they use the Meta token or whatever you want to call it, that's going to drive that crypto coin, crypto token, whatever you want to refer it to as. It's going to be very valuable. And I think to be honest, it's common sense. Like if we're talking about the virtual world, I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I like this one, mate. I like this one. And when I was sort of doing a little bit of looking into it myself, there's actually been sort of what I describe as the first early steps into it evolving into the sort of fully fledged currency that you're talking about. And Facebook sort of are apparently toying with the idea of like releasing a sort of in-app. So whilst you're still on Facebook, an in-app currency where you earn sort of tokens based on how much you interact with the platform and what you do, and like how full of the extent you're using the Facebook platform, and they'll reward you with tokens which you can sort of use elsewhere. And so apparently internally they're calling these Zuckbucks, which I quite like. So yeah, mate, I have to say, not only have you made a prediction, but you've actually made one which I think potentially coincidentally is actually there's a few rumblings going on in the background. So I like this take, mate. This is pretty hot. I'll put that one. Yeah, that's a very good way to get the ball rolling.
I got it done. I've started well.
Yeah, you certainly have, mate. Good. You certainly have. Right. So my first take was cold. Let's try and heat it up a little bit. I've got two more. I'm going to dive in now with. So we've spoken a lot on the podcast about influencers. They sort of seem to come up, be that intentionally or unintentionally, every other episode. And obviously it's a huge industry. The global influencer market grew from it was just $1.7 billion in worth in 2016, and this had risen to 9.7 in 2020. In 21, that soared again to 13.8 billion. So that's a $12 billion rise in just 5 years. And by the end of 22, it's expected to hit 16.5 billion. So this is a huge industry. And I think this rise is only going to continue to the point where, and this is my take, influencers will become the next generation's sporting superstars. And I don't mean that like you're going to be seeing like Molly May throwing it up to like Charlie D'Amelio in the NBA All-Star game. I don't mean that, but I mean in terms of their stature, because we've said a few times that sporting superstars are often the most renowned people on the planet. You know, Cristiano Ronaldo is the most followed guy on Instagram. You know, you've got guys like him, LeBron James, Tom Brady, like these big superstars, and how they're so well known around the world. I think we're going to reach a point where influencers are going to reach that kind of level. And I think we've sort of seen a little bit of it with YouTubers. I think YouTubers are sort of getting there, right? With like PewDiePie, and you look at guys like KSI, Logan Paul, Jake Paul, and like obviously their sort of tamperings with the sports industry has boosted that. But I think we're still in the early groundwork of this.
Well, we saw actually Jake Paul broke into Forbes' top paid sports stars list, which is actually incredible to think about, because we're not talking about Jake Paul's worth from, you know, YouTube and other areas, other investments. We're talking just from what he's made from his venture into boxing to being one of the top paid sporting athletes. I think that's incredibly telling. And, you know, Jake Paul is not a traditional boxer. He's not a traditional sports star. He's a young influencer that tried to get on the Disney Channel when he was a kid, and he became a Vine sensation, and then he became a YouTuber. And here we are. That's the story of Jake Paul, who's now engaging in the world of boxing. He's co-promoting with Eddie Hearn. He's trying to put his own match cards on, and he's obviously a boxer himself. And whether you like him or you loathe him, one thing you have to admire is what he's done to break into that list that Forbes have published, which has the likes of Conor McGregor, LeBron James, Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, etc. That is incredible.
Yep.
And I think, Dan, that's really is a testament to what you're trying to say, is that the influence and power that influencers have now, it's so big that if they decide they want to go into movies or they want to go into sports, or, you know, we saw Addison Rae was acting on Netflix movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is the fountain of youth for very different organizations in you know, in entertainment, in sports. They're like, oh, how can we get influencers involved in our product, because it brings a broader spectrum of fans into what they're doing. So, you know what, Dan? That is a bloody hot take, and I'm giving you that one. That is hot.
Thank you very much, mate. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just sort of see like you know, with KSI and what he's done with music. I mean, like, he's getting on songs with, like, he's obviously rapping, and he's getting on songs with, like, Lil Wayne, Rick Ross, and all these guys. You talk about like what the Paul brothers have done in the world of boxing. You think of like Molly May and the position that she now holds in like certain fashion brands and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I think this is just going to grow and grow, and these guys are going to get more powerful. And I think, I give that 5 years or so, and I think genuinely on like a global scale, these guys are going to start making some pretty big waves. So I'm glad to get myself back in the win column with that one, mate.
It's good. I mean, look, think of the D'Amelio kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a show on Disney Plus. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're the modern day Kardashians, although I know that they're very, very different things. Please don't think that I'm saying they're the same. But like, they are the modern day incarnation of that, and they are kids that come from a bloody dance app, you know what I mean? They just did dances, and now they're the most famous, arguably the most famous TikTok influencers in the world. So nailed it, man. I really do think that as time goes on, and to be honest, like, TikTok more so than YouTube now, TikTok is the future breeding ground of influencers. I think YouTube is gonna struggle to keep up. TikTok just recently announced that they're going to be giving 50% of the creator fund revenue to their actual creators. I think YouTube gives around 55%, but YouTube currently doesn't allow you to monetize shorts.
Yep.
So, hey, TikTok's got a very good proposition. I think it's such a wide, varied platform now that, there's going to be a lot of big stars coming from the world of social media.
So, that's my second take, mate. We'll give you yours now. And, another nice segue here. We'll stick with TikTok. Because you claim that the majority of major events in 2 to 3 years, so that's the shortest time frame we've had yet, mate, will be streamed live on TikTok. So my first question, when you say major events, what are you talking?
Well, as a big fan of the Eurovision Song Contest, obviously. Obviously Eurovision did stream their event on TikTok.
Yep.
If anybody saw what the stream looked like, it was basically in a vertical format, and how they did it is they had two screens. So the top screen was the live feed that somebody watching on their television or watching on YouTube would see, obviously condensed down into quite a small space. And then they had another screen at the bottom, which was the behind the scenes. So it was showing what was going on before the acts were coming out on stage. And you know what? Look, I wasn't the biggest fan of like how small these screens were. You've got to, squint your eyes a bit. I've got glasses. I mean, so I've definitely got to squint my eyes. But what I did like is the fact that you're able to have this experience, and we've seen it with like BT Sports as well, and all these sporting apps that they allow you to go dual screen, there's stats on the screen as well. Having that, being able to see the live feed and what else is happening as well, I thought that was fantastic. And I think to be able to do that, in a vertical format, which look, the most important thing about when I'm saying about TikTok streaming things is it's making things more accessible. Dan, me and you, if we think about, yes, if we're big football fans. Let's say England are playing. We're not going to watch England on TikTok, are we? We're going to probably go to a pub, get that atmosphere, get that amazing kind of that buzz around it. But somebody who's more of a general fan, somebody who maybe just be scrolling through TikTok and they see the England game come up, or they see the Eurovision Song Contest come up, they might be implored to stick around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in my opinion, that's what TikTok's doing so great, and that's why so many of these big events like the Euros, like Eurovision, want to partner with TikTok because of the different eyeballs it brings. It brings a younger audience, a different audience that they're not getting on television. They're not getting from the people that attend those events in person. So I think if you actually think about it, I think the FA Cup did it with, they weren't streaming the game, but they were streaming the crowd, which I know it's not exactly what you want to see. But that's cool.
Yeah.
It's a second screen experience. It's bringing something else to the table.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think it makes sense, Dan. I think more and more everybody is watching content like this now, as opposed to, hey, watching the big TV over there. Yes, when it's a film or if it's a TV show, you're still more likely to engage with it that way. But I think, look, consumer trends, more people are using their mobile device now.
Yep.
Just makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I like this one, mate. I like this one. I think we spoke in the last Eurovision episode about the other sort of live events that we've seen streamed on TikTok. There's been a few La Liga games streamed on there. They also do some cool stuff. It's not like streaming live events, but around International Women's Day there was a load of live events and stuff that went on. So not like sort of big televised ones, but they were doing so. As I said, mate, the early preparation is there. The main obstacle, of course, is that we watch everything horizontally, and so TikTok have got this thing now where they've got to try and make stuff work vertically. And like I mentioned, the football game, I saw a bit of it, and only a bit, because I'm like, you can't. It's not the same experience like watching a football match vertically, and so that's the only obstacle I think they've got to overcome. And obviously, they can't tell you to sort of put your phone horizontally, because that compromises the very values of TikTok. So that's the only obstacle, and
which is funny because that's actually how the FA screamed the fans.
Who was it?
You had to turn the phone on its side.
Isn't interesting, and I think it's not a million miles away. You do see a lot of content tell you to do that. One of my favorite accounts that I follow on TikTok is you comment with like a sports match or like any sports that you want to see, and they put together like quite a glossy, nice highlights package. It's obviously probably not legal; they don't own the rights, but it's cool. And obviously it starts with like turn your phone and like you watch it horizontally, and so obviously that's an option, but I can't see TikTok themselves doing that.
Well, let me tell you this. Here's my big bold prediction that I'm going to attach with that.
Okay.
Is that basically broadcasters are currently using traditional broadcast footage and trying to make that work for TikTok.
Yeah.
That's currently what they're doing. And Dan, if you remember a few years ago on social media, that's the same thing that happened with like micro content and people having to cut down your big clips and make it small. It was kind of like, oh, what are you doing? And then eventually what happens is you start making your micro content or your social content externally to the big podcast. So let's say you're doing a big podcast show, like there might be a completely different camera in the corner that's just capturing a different angle, or you're doing exclusive content after the broadcast. That's what these broadcasters are going to have to figure out. I don't think you can. I completely hear what you're saying. Like trying to watch that vertical thing horizontally is weird, but I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a new way to capture this footage that's going to be specific for vertical, and it's going to be edited specifically for vertical. And when they get that, that's when the big breakthrough is going to be.
I like it. I'm going to say that I think with your first take, the crypto one, you nailed that. I think especially as there was already some stuff going on. So that's top of the spice charts. This, if it's Nando's, I think that's what's the black one called at Nando's, whatever that one is, the really, really hot one. That's what that crypto one was. This one's the step down. It's like mild salsa, but I'll still give you, it's still a hot take, my friend. It's still a hot take. My last one, and this is again, this is probably accidentally turned into a bit of just me venting some bugbears to do with sort of tech and social. I don't like emails, man. And so my prediction is that emails, and I've attached sort of traditional SMS messaging to this, but it's more so emails, won't live to see another 5 years. Instant messaging apps will gain total control. And so this is one of those takes where I was talking about at the start where I thought, there's going to be so much online to say that emails aren't going to see out the next decade. I was like, this is going to be easy, a walk in the park. And then I came online and literally every single article was like, why email is still more alive than you think? Why email is going to continue to evolve? And I was like, oh dear. So this is perhaps my hottest take yet. I mean, in 2020, approximately 306.4 billion emails were sent and received worldwide. That's according to Statista. And I don't like them. I just think they've become like people's spam and junk folder. I think email marketing is done. Like those pesky emails from like Domino's and Starbucks, and like they go, just delete them straight away. Don't even read them. They're boring. You always risk them not sending. You've got like file size restrictions. Like you can't see what happens. You send your attachments off. You don't know where they go or what people do with them after that. Not a fan. And I do think that those kind of issues and like checking your emails has become a bit of a chore. Long email chains are just a nightmare when you've got to scroll through to find an attachment or something someone said. Not a fan. Don't like it. 5 years. They're done. Over to you.
I mean, that's a big take. One that I don't agree with completely. I guess as a business owner, my life is emails. However, I do sometimes find myself, like when I want to be taken seriously, I could just send a WhatsApp, but I'm like, I'm going to send an email because they'll know that I mean business when I send an email. They'll know I'm serious about this. So I think, I do think email is more for the business world. It's where the majority of communications take place related to that. And because there is a level of authority that comes with an email that is historically speaking. But even though I don't agree with you, Dan, I think you're onto something there. Because let's think of it now. WhatsApp, Telegram, Teams, all these different ways of instant messaging and doing it still in a way that can be professional.
Like Slack is great.
Yeah,
we use Slack. Yeah, I think that's another one.
How did I even forget Slack? But doing things in a way where it's more... You can jive off each other. I can ask you a question and you can react straight away. With an email, there's no expectation that's going to come back immediately. And I think the biggest thing you've got in your favor with this, Dan, is that we are becoming less and less patient as a human race. We want responses now. We want answers now. And that's the one thing about email is that email is not expected to be instant. If you send an email, you're not going to be like, I'll get that back in 10 minutes. You get it back when you get it back. When you have a complaint about a product and you send that off, you're not getting a response for ages. They always tell you, we'll get back to you in a week. Whereas if it's instant messaging, that give it 5 minutes, give it an hour, whatever you give, you're going to probably get a response back. And in this world that we live in now where we want instantaneous communication, it's a big thing. And that's why we're seeing, we work with clients and like, it's crazy because they want to have WhatsApp messages. They want to have WhatsApp groups. They want to have Telegram groups. They don't want to deal in emails anymore because it's obviously, like you're saying, the minute you start involving lots and lots of people, doing that in an email chain ain't fun. 100 emails. But doing that in a group chat, like a WhatsApp or a Telegram, where you can scroll up and down, you can find, you can search, you can see your attachment. Yeah, it makes sense. So even though, I'm not on board with it, I think email is here to stay. I do think that the onus and the importance of instant messaging within everything that we do, whether it's work or life, is going to continue to become more and more important.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. I think the only other thing I don't like is email talk. Like, why do we? I'll be sometimes sat like, you know, opposite you in the office, and I'll have to send you an email because, like, obviously, like some protocol like declares that sometimes, as you say, the more serious things you still have to do by email. Like, dear Andreas, you take on this as like best regards, and it's like to whom it may concern, and all this stuff. I'm like, I'm literally sat up, but like, why? I would never talk to you. And so I feel it's becoming archaic is the word, and I think maybe to say that like. It's not going to completely disappear, but it needs to evolve. I think it needs to become easier. It needs to become a bit more normalized. It needs to become, as you said, like sort of when you've got those people in a group chat, and like as I said, it's so much more convenient because you can pin messages, as you're saying, search, pick out your documents and everything like that. And I think SMS messaging, like traditional text messaging, I think we're slowly starting. It's probably a bit closer to the door than emails because, like, iMessage has, like, for people with iPhones, has completely taken over. Like WhatsApp and Telegram and apps like that have sort of contributed to that. So maybe that's sort of closer to the door. But yeah, I think emails, it's sort of you gotta ride or die, stick with the times, and try and evolve because yeah, they do just drive me nuts. So that is my third and final take. Give me the rating.
Plain.
Yeah.
Neither hot nor cold. I could have mid El Brook level mid. That is. Listen, I think I've spent too much time on TikTok recently. Listen, I think what you're saying again, I don't agree with it, but the idea behind it, I can get behind. So plain, not good, not bad. But I can see the thought process for it.
I think that ranks my takes overall at like a C+. I've had 1A, 1F, 1C. So I think I'll take that around the middle mark. Let's run through yours, mate. Your final one, and then we'll see where you end up because your second one is about another topic of the social jar, Elon Musk's Twitter takeover.
Elon Musk. Funny story, actually. A university newspaper, got in touch with me the other week asking to interview me on Elon and the Twitter situation. So it was totally random, but it comes from somebody that we met when we were at an IMAF championship. As one of the web writers, they actually live in America. They live in Chicago. They go to university there. They're like one of the editors of the school newspaper. So they were trying desperately to find somebody slightly qualified. I mean slightly to talk about Elon. So I got an email, got a message. So I had a lovely chat over the phone with them for about half an hour talking about Elon and my take on that. And it was really fun. It actually helped me come to terms a bit more with what my take was on Elon. Because if people remember on the episode when we talked about what to expect if Elon does get Twitter, I was kind of really indifferent about it. I didn't really know what to expect.
We tried to be neutral, didn't we?
We tried to be very neutral, but I think now I'm pro Elon getting Twitter because I just think that Twitter has hit this really, really lackluster level of development that I think it needs to kick up its arse. I think it can compete with the likes of Meta and it can compete with TikTok, but it needs to be done effectively, and it just hasn't been done like that for a very, very long time. So I have faith that Elon can be the man to do that change. But my big take is, Dan, that I'm not so sure this is going to go through. We're seeing now, Elon came out the other day and he said he needs Twitter to prove that there's less than 5% of its user base are bots. And there's a number of reports that have come out that it could be as high as 20% of Twitter's user base are bots. So obviously, if you're buying a platform and you're going to use it for some data and some stuff related to people's data, you actually need real data to do that, to make that platform valuable to investors, etc., to new technology, to new developments. You need real data. You can't have bot data. So this is actually a really, really big thing that it's a sticking point that I honestly feel that if Twitter cannot verify the percentage that is less than 5% of bots, I really don't see this deal going through. Or if it does go through, like, there's going to be some real big ramifications off the back of that in terms of how we have to verify accounts moving forward. I mean, for me, Instagram's 10 times worse. Like, when we work with the Bellator channel, you put a post out and immediately you've got like 50 porn bots like saying, hey, come on over, come on, you're looking for a good time, you're looking for a good time. So I see those bots on a daily basis. I don't experience them as much on Twitter, but we know, like, you know, from the American election, that the bots played a real big part in that in terms of pro-Trump, and obviously that's a very, very big topic that we can't get into today. But yeah, I don't know, Dan, there's just this part of me that, especially, again, another thing came out the other day, which apparent report that people within Twitter were, people as in people who work for Twitter, trying to do everything in their power to stop Elon getting control and completing the purchase. So internally, apparently, is hugely rife of people who don't want Elon involved. So it's just a mess at the minute. It's just a mess. And we know that even with the best intentions, how complicated takeovers can be and purchasing businesses. It's a vastly, vastly complex situation that every time you add one more issue to the pot, it makes it 10 times more difficult for this to be completed. So that's my take, Dan. As much as I want to see Elon, and I really do think it will happen, I cannot sit here today with complete conviction and say that, yes, it's going to happen. I genuinely don't know what's going to happen with that. And I think it's very possible we do not see Elon Musk end up as the owner or the majority owner of Twitter.
Very interesting, mate. Very interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned about Twitter staff, because I was reading a lot of stuff to say that, in-house there's a lot of concern. It's up in the air. There's a really bad sort of feeling in the air at Twitter HQ. They don't know what's going on. Apparently, it's doing CEO Parag Agrawal, who we've been doing the most for him on this podcast. We give him such a PR boost, man. Apparently, his credibility is taking like a huge dent because Elon's just leading him around at this point. He's like, obviously, he put that bid in, and Parag was like, "Oh, how about a seat on the board?" And Elon was like, "Yeah, that sounds good." And he was like, "Nah, actually, it doesn't sound good." And he's like, "Okay." And like the fact that this keeps getting, and Elon's calling all the shots, it's not doing his image any favors internally. There's been a lot of problems as well with Twitter stock. Actually, I was looking at, apparently recently that fell to as low as $48.64 a share, which, as some listeners will remember, that's well below the purchase price, which was $54.20 a share that Musk is set to pay for the company. So automatically, in the time in which he bid to now, it's like $6 a share less than what he's actually planning to pay for it. And so that analysts are saying that indicates that some investors are getting a bit spooked, a bit worried that this isn't going to happen. At the same time, Tesla stock is falling. The day after Musk lodged the Twitter bid, actually, it closed down more than 12%. So if that continues to fall downwards, it might actually hamper his financial ability to get this deal done. So there's so many complications. And for all the world, it moved so quickly, didn't it, at the start? It was like Musk was like one day on Twitter, like, might buy Twitter. The next day, he's like, bought Twitter. So it moves so quickly, and now it feels like there's stumbling block after stumbling block. We've got all this price going, like all this stuff going with price points and shares going on in the background. Yeah, it's become pretty sticky, mate. Pretty sticky. So yeah.
I really don't. I honestly, I can't sit here with complete conviction and say it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
It's very difficult, mate. It's very difficult. I mean, on your bullet points in which you submitted to me, your take is it will fail or become extremely complicated. Becoming extremely complicated, tick. I think that's already happened. I think we're there. Whether it will fail, I don't know with Elon Musk. I'm still not convinced at how seriously you can take the man. There was stuff.
I mean, he tweeted about chocolate milk the other day, you know. So.
Exactly. There's stuff going on right at the start where he's just like he's the sort of guy that would just do this sort of thing just to see if it would be possible, just to see if he could do it. And so, yeah, based on the fact we don't really know his intentions and all this stuff, all these complications, again, mate. Pretty good take from you, mate. This is hot sauce. I like it. So I think I'm going to give you 3 for 3 on your predictions, mate. Pretty good effort. I think, on the overall medal table, mate, you can take the win on this episode. Yeah.
Wow, what a proud moment. Yeah. Never in doubt, Dan. Never in doubt. The teacher, the master will always reign supreme. Yeah. The young Padawan.
The time will come.
Yeah, your time will come. But no, look, I do think my takes were better than yours. But like I said, with all of them, there's some level of substance. So I think either way, there's a ton happening in the world of social that everyone's got to keep their eye on.
100%. What I liked is that all of these are completely different. We went away, we didn't know what each other was going to bring, and we've brought back 6 completely different takes, all of which I think are fun to debate. And yeah, as I said at the top of the episode guide, let us know what your thoughts are on those 6 takes. Who do you think came out on top? And I think that just about rounds out the episode, mate. Episode 21. It's been a good one. Really enjoyed it, mate.
Yeah, episode 21 in the books. I mean, I never even thought we would get to episode 21 when we started. Remember me, you and Ryan sat crammed around on that little flat
the worst
table.
position for a host, because I was here. I was like, so what do you think, Andreas? So what do you think about that, Ryan? Never worked.
I know. Look, it was very humble beginnings, and you know what? The journey along the way has just been incredible, and you know, working with you and getting to be more comfortable as co-hosts with each other, I think it has been great. And the feedback from the followers on Patreon, the people who follow us on social media have always said how much they've enjoyed the personable chat between myself and you. So I just want to say a big thank you. And I have to take this opportunity, very left field. In fact, there's obviously, I didn't want to really give any indication at the start of the show about what's happening. So I guess the listeners of the show, the true fans, are going to be the first people to hear this, because we're not going to post it on social until after the show. But this is the very last episode of the Social Jar podcast. Yes, very left field after what I would call a very fantastic episode. Again, I didn't really want to take away from the experience of the show, because I was very excited for the topic, but we've taken the decision that yes, we finally got the golden chalice. We were hoping to maybe do a few more shows from here down from this brand new set, but this is going to be the last one. So the reason being, Dan, I'll just hand over to you for a second.
Yeah, so unfortunately, after what's been a very tough decision, I'm unfortunately leaving Uniform. My time at Uniform HQ has come to an end. I'm riding off into the sunset on my steed with a tip of the hat and a fond farewell. But yeah, unfortunately, it also has a knock-on effect with the Social Jar, because unfortunately, I can't sit opposite you anymore, mate, and bring these episodes. It's a crying shame, but as you said, we've ended on a high. We've ended on a really good episode that people can come back to and enjoy, because, you know, some of these takes, we've looked far down the road. So who knows, in 2030, I might get a tweet and be like, you were way off, son, way off. So, we've ended on a high. It's great to have the set. It's been great fun. But, unfortunately, needs must, I suppose. Yeah,
I Dan, just thank you very much. Not just for the Social Jar, but for Uniform. And I personally didn't want to carry on the show without you. I feel like, I know obviously it started with me, you and Ryan, but I feel like what this show has evolved into with what we bring with it and the how we present, I didn't want to be like, hey, the person that takes Dan's job, you're going to be in the hot seat, or somebody else. I feel like the show deserves more than that, and I'd rather end it on a higher note than 100%. When they recast, when you recast the show, you never know what's going to happen. So we're ending on a high note. It has been, honestly, I cannot even begin to express how grateful I am. Like, I'm not kidding myself. I know we never had the biggest audience, the biggest amount of listeners. We had a very, very strong core amount of people that would listen to the show. But you were all so vocal. And I know a lot of you only listened to it because it was me, and you do me a favor and you're my friend, and I really, really do appreciate it regardless, that every time we release an episode, even if it was a text, just to say how much you enjoyed it or how much you learned from it, because again, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to inform people and educate people. Or even if you just liked to tweet or retweeted it, whatever you've done over the past year, I'm honestly so grateful for everything. This has been the one thing that I've done a lot of podcasts in my time. I've done a lot of YouTube things, a lot of experiments that haven't stood the test of time. This has been probably one of the things creatively that I've stuck with for the longest amount of time, and I'm very proud of that as well. And I wanted the show to continue, and obviously it can't. And I would rather, as we say, Dan, go out on a high note. So honestly, from the bottom of my heart and from Dan's as well, thank you. None of this would have been possible. This set wouldn't have been possible. We did it because we wanted to help people understand social media a bit more, and we think that we achieved that.
100%.
And just because the podcast is going away doesn't mean that the content's going away forever. I may be back in some form or another. I'm not ruling it out, and I don't know what it might be. I don't even want to speculate what it might be. But I think that this definitely isn't the last of Uniform's social media content. Obviously, we're going to carry on with what we produce on our channel anyway, on our Instagram page, on the website, the articles, the content, the social commentary that we have provided all this time. So that will continue, and who knows, maybe a different show might pop up on your feeds in the future. But from me and from Dan, for one final time, this has been the Social Jar Podcast. Thank you very much. And who knows, maybe we'll see you again very soon.